next example is the same problem, Walton's bookstore. We still have the cost of buying calendars is $7.50. The sale price is $10, and anything unsold can be returned for a refund of $2.50. Now, we start with an initial decision variable value of order quantity of 200 based on that being the average value. Now, we're going to introduce at-risk add-on to Excel. Okay. Now, to open the at-risk add-on, okay, you can either do this before opening the Excel file or afterwards. It doesn't matter when, but you need to do it, and for that you go to the Start button, and then here is at-risk 6. Okay, you can select that, but suppose if you don't see at-risk in this list, then you have to go to All Programs and then look for Palisade Decision Tools. When you click that, then you will see at-risk listed there. So click on at-risk. Okay, that will then initialize and open a new tab. It will appear in just a second. So here you click OK, and you'll see at-risk right there. Now, under this ribbon, you have lots of different options, and what we will be using are these three, and then we'll be looking at this also, and here is where we actually run the simulation, and these are options for generating reports. So we'll look at some of them, not all of them. We're not going to go through each and every aspect of at-risk, okay, but we will get a good flavor for it. Okay, so now that the at-risk ribbon is available to us, then we have to now set up what the demand is going to be like. So for this problem, if you look at your textbook, the problem defines the demand as something from a triangular distribution. A triangular distribution has a minimum value, a maximum value, and a most likely value. Okay. A triangular distribution cannot be easily set up in Excel. If you want to do it with the Excel tools only, then you have to write a macro for it. There is no built-in function that we can use to generate demand using triangular distribution, and that's where at-risk will help us out. So it's very easy to define such distributions. So here is the button which says Define Distributions. So click that. Okay, remember your cell pointer must be here in the demand cell B13. Then you click that, and here is a list of all the different probability distributions you can use to generate the demand. So you can use beta general, binomial, cumulative. You can even do discrete, where you can define the discrete values and the probabilities like we did with the VLOOKUP in the previous examples, exponential, and so on. So there is lots of them, and we can even define your own distribution. But here is triangular distribution, where minimum, most likely, and the maximum. So click that and select that distribution. Okay, or you could double click, either way. Now here is the minimum, most likely, and maximum values that we have to set up for the triangular distribution, and for that we need to select these three cells, and the way to do that is to click this button. So that is Assign Excel References as Arguments. So if you click that, that will open the triangular distribution minimum, most likely, maximum window. So here you can go and highlight the three cells, and you will see that the cell references for those three cells will be populated here in this box. So there it is, E4, E5, and E6. Okay, then you click this button right there, and that will take you back to the original screen, and here you see the cell references E4, E5 and E6 are listed, and it gives you a pictorial view of what that distribution will look like. So here is the minimum, the maximum, and the most likely, and so on. So this is just to understand what the distribution will look like. So this is the function that is important. This function will generate demand using the distribution that we have defined. So now you click OK. Now that generates the demand. Now the problem is the demand is not integer. Okay. So how do you make it integer? Well, here is the function. This function can be edited in whichever way you want. So we can go and insert the round function around it. So if you say round, okay, and then remember we have to provide number of decimal places. Okay, so we can go and edit the function in this fashion, and that will give you a integer value for that distribution. Okay. And then we set up the profit model, okay, which is exactly like what we had done before. So sales will be the minimum value between order quantity and demand. That's what we can sell. Now return will be order quantity minus sales. Revenue is sales times unit price. Okay. Cost of calendars will be order quantity, how many calendars we're going to order, times the unit cost. Okay. Now refund is how many units how many calendars we are returning times the refund amount. And the profit is revenue minus cost is the profit from calendar sales, and we have to add the refund amount. So this is our profit model, which is exactly like what we had done previously. So now we have to set up in at risk that this is the output that we are looking for. Now we can go to at risk. Okay, so here is the next button that's very important to us. This is add output. Okay, so with this cell selected, if you click add output, okay, then this cell is now identified as the output that we are looking for. So now click OK, then this is identified as the output for at risk. So it adds this prefix to the formula that we have already set up. So this tells at risk that this is to be treated as an output cell. So now we can go and gather information, summary statistics from the replications we're going to be running. So we're going to be running replications, and at risk will keep track of the profit for each of those iterations, and we can now set up functions to gather summary statistics. And here we use this button. So this is insert function. You can actually type the function. If you remember the function name, you can just type it. You don't have to use this button. Okay, so here we're going to look at simulation results. If you use simulation results and you see there is a lot of functions here, and you can use any of these functions. Now we want the minimum, so we select risk min. Okay, and the data source is profit. Okay, don't worry about simulation number. We'll talk about simulation number later on, but right now we'll just skip that. This is optional. We don't need to specify anything there. So that's it. So this is your minimum. So I'm going to give a name to profit. So we will use the name. Okay. So I'll edit this H13 to profit. Okay. Now maximum. Okay. Again, we'll go back to insert function. Actually, it is risk max. If you remember the name of the function, we can just type it. Okay. Average, okay, again, don't use the Excel average function, because Excel average function is not we are after. We are after the mean of the replications, and we have to use the risk functions for that. So we have risk mean. Okay, risk mean is the average value, and then we want standard deviation, and if we can get the standard deviation, then we can set up the confidence interval. Okay, so risk standard deviation of profit. Okay, fifth percentile. So here we have risk percentile. Okay, so profit, and we want the fifth percentile. So 0.05 is what we have to specify, and here we want the 95th percentile. For probability of profit less than or equal to 300, we need to use the risk target function. Risk target. What is our target? Okay, data source is profit. Target X value is 300. So this gives you the probability of 300 or less. So it gives you the cumulative probability. So here, look at this. Cumulative probability is calculated. So this gives you the cumulative probability. Now if you want probability of greater than 400, then go to target, okay, data source, now 400, but this will give you the cumulative probability, but what we want is the profit to be greater than 400. So click OK, and then you go and do 1 minus that probability. So that will give you the upper tail probability value. Okay. So now we have set up everything that we want. Now we need to run the simulation. So here we need to make sure that this little button here, okay, has the background, solid background. So it should not be the transparent background. So if I click that, this acts as a toggle. So the background is gone. So you don't want that. You want that background to be solid. Okay. You can go to settings and change the settings if you like. Number of iterations and simulation number, we will look at that later on, and so on. Or you can change the number of iterations right here. So let's select 1000 as the number of iterations, and then we need to click start simulation. Now, simulation is running. Okay, at the conclusion of the simulation run, okay, it gives you an output in graphical form. So and summary statistics are provided here, maximum, minimum, mean, mode, and so on. And of course we have set up that kind of output, summary output, right here previously. So here are the, let's go ahead and format all of this. These are dollar values, so let's provide dollar, and these are probabilities, so let's make that into a percentage. So with at risk, we have now run 1000 replications of the demand following triangular distribution, and these are the results that we get for an order quantity of 200. This simulation is for order quantity of 200. If order quantity is 200, this is what will result in these are the results that we get from the 1000 replication simulation.